heavy-duty wire, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Talk about how to make better, reliable connections on your robot. The first thing you do when you set your robot up is you wire the battery in. This gets wired in. The positive side of the battery gets wired with red wire. It's very important to have the right color. Electricity will flow through a wire of any color, it doesn't care. But when you go to look at your robot, it's much easier to figure out what wire goes where if you use a common standardized color scheme. And so for the first robotic competition, they insist that you use the normal color scheme for battery signals. Red is always positive. And we use 6-gauge wire, very, very heavy-duty wire, to connect the battery into the these power pole connectors, and I'm moving my mouse over at the top left of the screen. That then goes through this high circuit breaker, and then that red wire goes to the positive side of the power distribution. The black wire is also 6-gauge wire, black for the negative side, which goes to the negative. You'll notice molded into the plastic of the power distribution panel is a plus and a minus. Don't mix those up, or you may have a very expensive lesson.
First hardware on there to activate. Okay. And it'll ask you for all your basic information.
Other power connections use 12-gauge wire. If you run a connection from the 40-amp circuit breakers on this power distribution panel, it then powers the motor speed controllers that then goes to fairly heavy-duty drive motors on your robot. You'll see some big flat motors that come in your kit on January 3rd. Those are usually used to actually power the robot, make it move. Very heavy current, they'll take up to 100 amps. Those are protected in this case by a 40-amp circuit breaker, and that must use 12-gauge wire. For other motors and systems that use lower current, either by the 30-amp circuit breaker, those must be connected using 14-gauge wire. So you'll need to buy some additional 12-gauge and 14-gauge wire in order to complete your robot this year. Depending on how your robot's configured, you will need either a few feet or 50 feet, depends on where your motors are relative to the robot itself. And for smaller circuits that are protected by the 20-amp circuit breaker, you need to have 18-gauge wire. Again, red or black. You can buy this wire usually at an auto parts store. They have reels and reels of wire. And I'll give you at the end of this presentation some websites where you can buy wire and tools and everything else, usually for a better price than the auto parts store. So here's a photograph of a typical installation. You'll see several of these set up today. There's one on the table over here. Ours looks something like this. This is looks a little bit messy, but that's what how a fully configured robot controller will look like this year. Down in the lower left is the mobile device controller with all of the various cards plugged into it. Just to the right of it is the digital sidecar, which is that breakout box that basically takes some of the signals that are from the digital card on the compact Rio computer system and basically allows you to